Pete, if you were to become the leader of the PNP, what will be your vision for the party and how do you intend to turn that vision into a reality?
So the first thing will be to do a whole transformation. We have to look at how to continually engage our party members and supporters. We have to look at how to develop really modern communications capabilities. Communication is a core competence of a political party now, probably even more important than the traditional organization. And we have to have...
That was something that was effectively utilized by Obama.
Absolutely.
In the 2008 presidential
you have
election.
to use technology, you have to use modern approaches, social media, etc. And then finally, we have to look at the party structure itself. One of the resolutions I brought forward in the past, which really wasn't even debated, was suggesting that the party structure itself needs to change. We have these positions for vice presidents, which are really, a position with status but no responsibility. We have regional chairmen who have a lot of responsibility for organizing the constituencies and divisions in their region. I think we should merge the two and make it a regional vice president position. So you blend the position that has status with the responsibility of organizing so that you can hold people accountable.
For many decades, the Jamaican economy has remained stagnant and at times shown marginal growth. How do you intend to address that?
I think we have to accept that our economy originally was based on producing commodities largely for export markets from colonial times, sugar, bananas, rum. We have to move from the commodity end of production to the value added. We have to move away from, basic agricultural items, the production of basic agricultural items, to the production of high value added items, where the original product, be it sugar cane or sugar, for example, is used in high value jams and preserves and rums that are aged and blended and distilled to where the sugar has now been multiplied and amplified many times, the value. We also, the creative industries are still relatively untapped pool. Every Jamaican practically is a creative, is a performer, it sees themselves as a musician or an actor, or. So I think there's a huge potential in the creative industries for us, but we have to start transforming our whole system to have an ecosystem that nurtures these types of activities.
With an income per capita of just $5,500, Jamaica is well behind many of its Caribbean neighbors. Where would you like to see our income per capita over the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, obviously it needs to be 2, 3, 4 times that. But I would start by saying I think our income per capita is probably understated because so much of our economy is informal. The last study suggested almost half of our economy was outside the formal record system. So I think we need to first of all reduce the administrative bureaucracy, bring taxes down to a level where the incentives to avoid them are low, and bring more and more people into the formal sector so that we can have a better handle on the economy. I think if we did that, we might see our per capita income might be, at least 50 to 75% more than it actually is what it's stated as. But apart from that, no, we have to do all the other things to make our economy grow. We have to become much more open to the rest of the world. We have to recognize we have to transition from the traditional sectors. And also we have to, in a sense, revolutionize our whole education system. Our education system was still designed for that plantation economy, where 70% come out of high school with no, with no qualification to go on to tertiary training. So they were designed, or the system was designed to produce 70% hewers of wood and drawers of water. And we still have not modernized and adapted our educational system to today's paradigm where you're going to be producing, a lot of the manual labor type jobs are gone or are going, whether replaced by artificial intelligence or by automation. So it's much higher skill jobs, and we have to really invest in our non-traditional schools so that everybody leaving high school is in a position to either train themselves through online resources, etc., or go on to formal tertiary training.
You have often lamented the impact of the scourge of crime on the country. It is costing Jamaica about 5% of GDP, which is around $75 billion a year. How would you address this problem?
Well, one of the concerns I have is when you look at the allocation in the budget for education and for national security. Over the last 5 years, education has grown at a relatively slow level, while national security has been growing at an accelerated level. If we keep at these relative growth rates, we'll be spending more on national security in a couple of years than on education. Now that to me is a sign of a lopsided set of priorities. We will keep having to spend more and more on national security if we don't invest in the social capital in this country, in the human capital, in social services, if we don't get proper housing in our inner city communities and some of the squatter communities in rural areas, if we don't get good schools, if we don't get proper garbage collection, just some of the basics in these communities, if we don't put in that investment now, we will forever be fighting crime and needing more and more budget for the police and the army.
What are your thoughts on the effectiveness of the SOEs?
We've had it almost continually for the last 2 years. This year, murder is up relative to last year. And more importantly, every year during the state of emergency, murder rate is higher than in any year during my administration as Minister of National Security. When we had no states of emergency, we hardly used curfews or any of these sort of oppressive measures where you suspend individual rights. There is a basic lie that's being sold to the public, and that is that you can't get saturation levels of policing or police and military in your communities without a state of emergency. That's not true. For the last 40 years, the military has worked in support of the police in Jamaica every single day. So you don't need a state of emergency for that. What a state of emergency really adds is just PR value and the ability to hold somebody without charge, without justification for indefinite periods of time. That doesn't help you solve crime. What that does is create a resentment against the state and the society. And as I've often said, if you went into Jack's Hill and Cherry Gardens and scraped up 24 sons of the elite in Jamaica and held them without bail for a few days, the state of emergency would end immediately in this country. But because it's the sons of people in Flanker, in Norwood, in South St. Andrew, in Southwest St. Andrew, we accept it.
What are your thoughts on climate change, and how do you see it affecting Jamaica?
We have a crisis. All the science tells us that not only is the world getting hotter and the implications for the environment, the negative implications for the environment, but it's even happening at a more rapid pace than the scientists had predicted. So for the last 4 years, each July sets a new record. And the previous record was the year before. So you're now on a sort of straight line increasing trajectory. And we see what's happening in the Amazon right now. I mean, just a ecological disaster. The lungs of the world is burning. We see our own cockpit country, which is a jewel in this part of the world, which we should be protecting, now at risk of mining, bauxite mining. And that will endanger the water resources in the whole central to western part of Jamaica. So, I mean, you know, it is amazing that we are as tolerant of what is happening as not just as Jamaicans, but as global citizens. And we don't recognize that this is perhaps the existential issue of our time.